Good morning. The purpose of today's webinar is to discuss a few key trends in the food and drink sector which we are seeing lead our clients to innovate or do even more research and development. We will discuss 5 key trends and share some practical examples of how we have seen clients maximise value from these by using R&D relief and other associated innovation tax reliefs. My name is Stuart McCallum and I'm a partner based in our Glasgow office. I head up our sector team for food and drink, and I'm also part of our UK manufacturing team. My colleague James Tetley is a tax partner and has specialised in research and development tax credits, or R&D, for many years, and he will expand on R&D later on in the presentation. We hope you enjoy this webinar as we discuss a few trends and highlight areas where R&D tax planning is worthwhile considering. So, first of all, just a brief introduction to RSM. Although we can proudly trace our UK roots back to the 19th century through founding firms operating in London and Liverpool, from 1988 to 2015, the firm was known as Baker Tilly. In October 2015, the firm adopted the name RSM and united under a single global brand with RSM audit, tax and consulting firms across the world. We are now a global firm with representation in 120 countries and a team of around 43,000 people. The food and drink sector is increasingly global, and our international reach helps clients develop into new markets. A key one is the US, which is the largest country to which the UK exports. We have a food and drink sector group, which is led out of New York there. Our focus is on middle market businesses, which tend to be family-run, owner-managed businesses or corporates listed companies. Relationships are key, and we pride ourselves on our UK regional footprint, which allows us to focus on each local market. This allows us to work with many different companies and support them locally, nationally and internationally. Food and drink is the largest subsector within UK manufacturing and has many excellent companies striving to grow and develop. Our approach to this sector is based on supporting businesses from local offices and building knowledge of the challenges that they are facing. Being members of the Food and Drink Federation helps with that UK profile, and from a Scottish perspective, we are actively involved with Scotland Food and Drink. What we have seen has driven the food and drink sector in recent times is a focus on collaboration, provenance, premiumisation and a growing synergy with agriculture and tourism. The future is bright for the whole of the UK as we have so many great products and companies in the food and drink space. There will be time for questions at the end of this presentation, so please just type these into the live chat and we will do our best to answer these at the end of the presentation. Now over to James to overview R&D relief.
Good morning everyone. My name is James Tetley and I lead RSM's Innovation and Technology team, a group of around 30 people that specialise in R&D tax credit advisory, patent box tax planning and IP intellectual property structuring. Last year as a firm we generated cash savings of over £60 million for our clients in over 600 claims submitted. The food and drink sector has always invested heavily in innovation, and it seems in particular that the levels we're seeing are at their highest. As the sector keeps pace with digitalisation, emphasis on sustainability and environmental impact, and the changing tastes of the consumer. More on that later. First though, an overview of what we mean by R&D from a tax perspective. What we tend to see is that our definition is almost always broader than that of an engineer or technician. For tax purposes, qualifying R&D activity requires the seeking of an advance in science or technology through the resolution of scientific or technological uncertainty. We need both the advance and the uncertainty to qualify, and it's important to bear in mind that these advances and uncertainties must be related to an aspect of science or technology. A commercial advance alone won't qualify, although will almost always be the driver for a subsequent science or technological advance. If we take each one of those in turn, the advance, that's essentially an appreciable improvement, but not necessarily market leading, and it can be knowledge for the company alone, provided that that knowledge was not readily available or open sourced. The second, scientific or technological uncertainty. This is as defined by the competent professional in your business as being a solution that was not readily deducible or immediately foreseeable to them. Practically speaking, this is often those head-scratching moments that will signify the uncertainty. It's also worth mentioning that the advance doesn't just need to be in a product. It can also be an advance in process or material, device or service. So in that sense, it's very broad. And the activities that qualify are those that contribute directly or indirectly. The savings can be significant. For small and medium-sized businesses, a claim can generate additional tax relief of between 33 and 46 pence per pound spent on qualifying costs. For large businesses, the additional saving is around 10p per pound spent. The costs that will typically qualify fall under a handful of specific headings. Staff costs, usually the largest cost, but to include a proportion of the gross salary, employer's national insurance, employer's pension contribution for staff involved directly or indirectly in R&D. The second is externally provided workers, which is effectively outsourced or off-payroll labour provided on a day rate basis to support your business in your R&D. The third, subcontracted costs. Now this is contingent on which scheme that you're claiming under, the small or the large scheme. But subcontracted costs are activities contracted out to a third party to carry out on your behalf. Consumables, these are materials consumed or transformed as part of your R&D process. Software licenses, and heat, light and power. Whilst the focus of today's webinar is mainly around R&D tax relief, it's also important not to lose sight of other tax reliefs relating to innovation that will be relevant. These include patent box, which is a 10% tax rate on profits arising from qualifying or patented intellectual property, and also the R&D capital allowances, which is a 100% capital allowance on capex used for R&D purposes to include property.
So James, what has been a striking trend over the last few years has been evolving changes in consumer tastes. This seems to be accelerating at the moment, with two key areas being health and wellness and also free from. I know from from Scotland that aspects of our diet are perhaps not always optimised, and that discussions continue across government, industry, NHS about health and fitness and a positive negative impact that can have on food. I see people being open to a wider range of healthier foods and vegan, vegetarian approaches to food being of great interest to the industry. I am not yet at the stage to make that switch 100%, as I still like Scottish beef, but the range and variety of healthier, vegan-type products alternatives is quite startling. Alcohol-free is another growing market segment, which has scope for more innovation and expansion. In terms of flavour profiles and tastes, some people will not always like, but others will love them. It also broadens out the ranges of foods that people can try, all for the benefit of future health and wellness, which is going to be an ongoing issue for the UK. Allergen-free or free-from is another area where consumers are increasingly aware of choices that they could make. I know of Genius Foods who have been at the forefront of gluten-free, and I know other bakery businesses who are looking at allergen-free as well. Could the future be that more foods will just be allergen-free, perhaps on trains, planes and cruise ships, all of which presents opportunities for the industry to either innovate with new products or change the recipes accordingly? Other diets are and will emerge, and one to watch is FODMAP, which is gaining momentum. Food on the go is another massive opportunity, with convenience increasingly important for the consumer. Soreen is a great example of adapting and providing a bite-sized product, or digestive thins. I know a retail business in Scotland that is revamping all of the offerings to provide more food on the go options for customers. This has to be good and will also play into healthier options and free-from products. I don't think this will ever replace people cooking at home, but with time precious and delivery methods via Uber Eats, etc., it feels that this trend is going to keep accelerating. I guess all this leads to companies refining products, developing new ingredients and potentially new ways of making the product. All could have an R&D aspect to them.
Yes, absolutely. We're seeing huge levels of innovation in product formulations through process efficiencies right the way through to the use of technology to identify smarter ways to put the product in front of its consumer. To give a couple of examples, same taste, different ingredients. We've seen this most recently with the introduction of the sugar tax, with businesses scrambling to reduce or remove the sugar in soft drinks. The problem being that as an ingredient, sugar improves shelf life and taste. Time spent researching alternatives and then developing a way to integrate new ingredients into an existing product without impacting flavour, stability or shelf life is often an area where scientific advances are being sought that involve the resolution of scientific uncertainty. Shelf life in itself. Another example would be a bakery we worked with that was a supplier to the major supermarkets. They made R&D tax relief claims in respect of a project they worked on to increase the shelf life of their breads and baked goods without relying on unnatural or unhealthy levels of preservatives.
The food and drink sector has always had an international aspect to it, either by exporting or taking a lead from products in other markets which could work in the UK. What I like at the moment is the opportunities for UK food and drink to take a UK product and consider tweaking the recipe, packaging or branding to play into another market. The reverse of that is what is growing internationally may become a future hit with a UK twist to it. Recently had a presentation from New Nutrition Business, which provides global market research to the food and drink industry. Some of the views they had on the opportunities for UK food and drink to internationalise products were interesting. An example being a US company which produces a range of products called Epic. This was not one that I was aware of, and it stood out for me given the aquaculture sector in Scotland. What they do is variations on a jerky, and they're also using salmon as part of a wide range of products. Very healthy and environmentally conscious. Is that something the industry in the UK could follow and develop variations of that theme? There are many UK products which can be adapted for a different palate. At the heart of UK food and drink is a provenance and quality aspect, and many international markets will pay for that. Safety of product is vital as well, and the ability to scale up a recipe to cope with volumes is key. We touched on non-alcoholic drinks in the earlier section, but this is not just a health choice. Certain countries in the world where alcohol is prohibited may be large markets for an equivalent non-alcoholic product, i.e. the Middle East, which must have billions of pounds potential demand. You can also see the impact that craft beer, which really exploded in the USA first, has transferred to the UK. I'm losing count of the number of new breweries being opened, but this is a classic example of an international trend being harnessed and grown in the UK. Camden Town Brewery and Brewdog are great examples of that, both now pursuing world domination by different paths. Is kombucha one of the next products that can transfer to the UK? A fermented, slightly alcoholic black or green tea drink intended as a functional beverage for its health benefits ticks a lot of boxes. A new product with international heritage which is healthier and convenient. I think this is a great area for UK businesses to either adapt an existing product or take that international idea into the UK marketplace. Both require strategy, planning and thinking. How to produce and how to brand being key as well.
Consumer products are understandably highly regulated, and there's often heavy investment in developing a product that can satisfy required standards. But this also breeds opportunity. An example of a claim I've seen made involves smart packaging, where the packaging itself can indicate when the product inside has been out of the fridge for too long, as a smarter alternative to outdated best before labelling. Tastes and preferences will also vary depending on physical location or geography. For example, food prepared for in-flight catering is developed in the knowledge that your tastes change at altitude, and typically stronger flavour combinations are required. Another example being consumer preferences around the proportion of cocoa within chocolate, which is again contingent on geography and climate, and then how that impacts on other ingredients within a product.
Whilst the UK produces a lot of the food and drink we consume, we do import large quantities of different products. From an environmental aspect, some of these choices are being more openly questioned. Could we use more product made in the UK in the coming years, within reason? This could be an opportunity for UK food and drink to produce more for UK markets. Single-use plastic bags and the various levies placed in them across different parts of the UK has really started to focus minds on packaging, along with Blue Planet and other TV shows highlighting some of the environmental issues which packaging can cause. It is hard to reverse course and not use plastics in some form, but changes are being made. More recyclable packaging is being developed, and one of our clients, Vegware, is helping to tackle some of these issues, especially on the go coffee market. I also know some manufacturers of paper packaging who are struggling to cope with demand. It is impossible to just ramp up production without medium to long-term supply chain planning. What it does all do is allow food and drink to think in more innovative ways as to how produce may be packaged, presented, delivered or consumed. I don't think this is optional anymore, and being aware of environmental impact on a number of levels needs to be front of mind for food and drink manufacturers. Other business models have clear methods set up to ensure their eco-friendly vision is clear. Just look at Toast Beer, who have incorporated bread that would otherwise be wasted into their manufacturing processes. That particular business even donates its profits to food wastage charities. The brand impact also needs to be considered, with social media being a medium which can make or break brands very quickly. This influencing role is becoming increasingly strong, and with the right approach can be a powerful accelerant for growth. As with our other trends, it presents opportunities in the sector to really become standard bearers from an environmental aspect, but planning, thinking and design are key.
Packaging is a huge focus for companies at the moment, off the back of overwhelming feedback from consumers around single-use plastics, which has driven businesses to rethink their approach to packaging. Projects in this space often qualify for relief, either where a business is designing alternatives to plastic that still have the important qualities of protecting and preserving the product. This might be researching or experimenting with new materials, and then the production line itself needs to be redesigned. For example, a bottling line designed for plastic bottles then being redesigned to support smaller glass bottles. Another example is around fresh or natural produce, whether that's consumables or health and beauty, for example, soaps. I've seen claims where businesses are researching how to embed a barcode in the product itself to obviate the need for a label. Edible packaging was a trend I came across only the other week. Not sure how culturally how quickly eating the box that your pizza came in will catch on, but irrespective of your feelings, this is the sort of activity that will qualify for R&D relief. A final example, not strictly food and drink, but also think about daily contact lenses and really anything daily or consumable, and how we can change consumer behaviours by harnessing latest technologies and science to innovate.
This is one trend that is very multifaceted indeed. I know my Scottish diet is not always perfect, but this is happening all over the Western world. Diet is key, with the food and drink sector being pushed to adapt and lead this. Not entirely fair as exercise is another aspect. All of this comes down to personal choices in my own mind, but with the sugar tax, the government may be starting to nudge everyone a bit harder. I know from discussions that various parts of the food and drink sector are increasingly involved in adapting recipes, formulas, and explain the benefits that perhaps moderation or changing habits can have on health. However, could the government start to tax other perceived unhealthy foods? I have no idea how you classify that, but it may be based on things like sugar or fat content and level of calories as examples. All this presents risks in certain sections of the food and drink industry, with the fizzy drinks space taking the most recent impact of that. The balance of being healthier and not losing the flavour taste profile and not having to materially increase the costs are challenging indeed. This also goes back to new consumer trends where potential new ingredients could be used. Vegetarian haggis is a great example of that. This is more healthy than the original, and some, not me, would argue is tastier. I can see more of this happening, driven by consumer trends in terms of taste, but also becoming, on the face of it, healthier. As with most aspects, debate is rife around what is bad and what is good. With science and medical advice changing, it can be a minefield. Take milk, with people now starting to perceive in a younger age bracket that full fat is better for you than semi-skimmed. I can see lots of challenges and opportunities, and you may be lucky or unlucky as to how your product is perceived. It also opens up new markets to change your products into, where concerns may be different. Yet again, another major opportunity if you move with the times and adapt quickly. That takes agility, foresight and planning, as major changes may be needed as to how you make your products.
Ingredients is in many ways the obvious R&D. So where businesses are experimenting with new formulations, new ingredients, these activities will often qualify. We've worked with health and vitamin drinks manufacturers, for example, that have invested heavily in developing drinks recipes that include healthy ingredients in a formulation that offers the requisite health benefits, whilst also being a stable formulation, great tasting and looking appealing. We often see issues around sedimentation, cloudy appearance, for example, where a product is unstable. R&D tax relief will be relevant to the time and cost invested in overcoming the scientific uncertainties involved. At the extreme end of the scale, I've heard of businesses developing a plant-based burger that tastes, looks and cooks on a barbecue like a beef burger. This is also an area that naturally aligns with the patent box, where a novel formulation is created that is patentable. There is then the opportunity to access this regime and potentially benefit from reduced tax rates on profits from sale of the product or the IP going forward. Key here is early guidance from a patent attorney to ensure that any potential patent is filed before it enters the public domain.
Our final trend to discuss, and this one is being impacted by the B word and causing a range of concerns. Industry 4.0 is coming, and the UK is way behind some of our key competitors in embracing this or even considering it. With technology moving at such a rapid pace, the consumer can expect a different type of experience. Traceability is becoming a hot topic, which goes back to provenance and health. What are we eating and how do we know that? Using technology may help this, with blockchain being one area that people are starting to consider. Back to Industry 4.0, which can help production processes become more efficient and effective. It could save labour, but it also needs a different type of skilled labour to support the associated infrastructure. For many of the companies in the webinar today, production processes may be geared to volume production, and using technology may be part of that strategy. At the other end, more artisanal producers may be able to utilise aspects, but still remain true to that brand and fight in provenance and premiumisation. Technology here may be around how you access a global market and ensure a great customer experience through delivery channels. Robotics is another interesting area where automation can help in a flow-type process. I know from client discussions that aspects of production lend themselves to technology, but the start and the end bit is where challenges still lie, and human intervention remains a key part. I'm sure this will evolve in the coming years as more research and development is deployed into processes and innovation solves problems being faced across the industry. RSM is an active member of the Y-Food community, which is a group dedicated to driving innovation in the food industry using technology. Y-Food create dynamic events and bespoke projects, produce online content, generate deal flow and mentor food tech startups. The opportunities in food tech were highlighted by a Y-Food presentation at a recent internal UK consumer markets conference. Some of the key trends resonated strongly and align with our discussion today. Areas which will drive this increase in food tech are increasing demand for personalisation, on-demand service expectation, people wanting the experience economy, more consumers seeking a plant-based identity in products, shifts in the supply chain and reuse, reducing waste. All are developing rapidly, with any investment in food tech around enabling these areas looks like a valuable opportunity for growth.
New equipment, technologies or ingredients, repurposed equipment, and working with suppliers to improve equipment design. This is an area often overlooked in the focus towards the product, but development of manufacturing processes or productionizing a prototype can often involve more expenditure than the initial product R&D. As an example, redeveloping a manufacturing line to reduce the level of wastage or rejected projects is usually an ongoing process that involves significant time and resource. When looking at production R&D, we often see an R&D claim more than double when you acknowledge the mindset that a product hasn't finished its development journey in the lab, but rather once it has been through the scale-up process from small-scale batch testing, prototype volumes, and then up all the way through to production volumes. All the way through, issues will be identified in how to efficiently produce a product that is fit for purpose. This is also a key area where interaction or access to R&D capital allowances must be given consideration, as this can accelerate, or in the case of structures, actually access tax relief through the capital allowances regimes, with 100% allowances on assets used in R&D, for example, pilot plants, equipment, or development lines. So we've spent some time talking around areas within food and drink where R&D may be relevant, which have included ingredients, same taste, different ingredients, or improving formulations, shelf life, packaging, new equipment, technologies or applications, and new standards and changing consumer demands. Hopefully all of these have highlighted the breadth of activities that may be relevant and offer an opportunity to unlock additional tax relief to reduce the net cost of innovation. But I wanted to finish with a few points around the claim process itself. Firstly, an R&D claim is fundamentally a standard claim within a tax return. It must be supported by an analysis and technical support to explain why the costs included are considered to qualify, but this shouldn't be an arduous task. Leading on from this, by taking specialist advice, you will be able to design an R&D claim process that fits your business. There's no one-size-fits-all or single way a claim should be collated. We know what HMRC expect to see eventually, but how you get there without significant drains on management resource is where advice is valuable. Having been a member of HMRC's R&D Consultative Committee for many years, we know how supportive and receptive HMRC are to sensible, considered claims being made, and how commercial inspectors within the specialist units will be in supporting businesses to make the right claim. But the most important thing for me is to encourage businesses to get out of the day job mentality and to acknowledge that just because you employ clever teams of people that innovate each and every day doesn't make it routine. Focus back to the key points and cornerstones where we started today. Is there an advance in science or technology? Was there scientific or technological uncertainty in how the solution was achieved? Did your technical teams have those head-scratching moments? If that's the case, there's more than likely to be R&D within your business and a claim to be made.
We hope that you have found this webinar interesting and useful. We will leave the live chat open for a few minutes, so if you have any questions about any of the content that we've been through today, then please just type these into the live chat field available, and we will do our best to answer these now. Hi James, a couple of questions just coming in. One is particularly relevant, I guess, in terms of the ongoing Brexit challenges, shall we say. Do we have any visibility of what our leaving the EU could do to the current R&D tax credit regime?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because there's a number of areas within R&D tax relief where there's an interaction with EU law or EU legislation. The SME definition itself is an EU definition. The SME regime is also a notifiable EU state aid, so there's an interplay there as well. The short answer is that we don't know for sure, but the advice that we've received from HMRC is that they intend for the regime to continue in its current form. So where there is a reliance on EU legislation, that will be replaced by a UK equivalent. But as I say, this is very much watch this space.
Okay, thanks, James. Just see if we get any more questions coming in. Just one other one. What would you say is the level of scrutiny you see from HMRC currently for an R&D claim process going through? So personally, and generally across the firm within RSM, we're seeing very few inquiries. Possibly more inquiries focused towards software R&D than other sectors, but generally speaking, a fairly low level of inquiries. What we are seeing is real challenges around HMRC's ability to process claims quickly. So we're notified every week as to what claims are being reviewed currently, and HMRC are still stuck on December claims for the large company scheme, and May submissions for the SME scheme. So they do have a real backlog. They've assured us and others that they're addressing that, and they hope by the end of this month that they will be back up to date. But it does just show the resource constraints that they're faced with. Okay, thanks James for that. Well, I think again I'm conscious of time, and thanks for everyone joining the webinar today. If you have further questions, you can see our contact details on the slide. So please feel free to get in touch with either of us directly with your queries, and we'll be very happy to help you. Thank you for listening to us today. We're running a variety of events with FDF over the coming months, with events already planned in Manchester, Glasgow and Newcastle, to name a few. So we hope to see you at some of those in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.